Hello and welcome to the Holistic Health Detective. So today I'm going to tell you a fascinating story. Well, fascinating if you're interested in nutrition, which I am, of course. It's about a patient some years ago who came to us with complex symptoms, which had been going on for a long time, a couple of years. Now, this is a wonderful, wonderful example of get the basics right. And the simplicity of the solutions in the background of a bit of a more complex nutritional biochemistry picture. So this guy came along to see us, and he was very, very tired. He had a burning mouth. That was the main problem he had, was the burning mouth, and significant low mood, significant. And his story was very interesting. He had these symptoms for a long time. He'd been to his doctor a number of times. He'd been put on antidepressants. He got what they call serotonin syndrome, which is when your serotonin levels go too high on that medication, causes a very rapid heart rate. It's very it's not a good condition. It had put him in the hospital. Those symptoms had put him in the hospital, and they took him off the medication, which was then contraindicated for him. He'd been given all kinds of psychiatric type, medications. Nothing had actually helped. And a friend of his had said, you know what, I really think you've got a B12 deficiency, and I'm going to give you some B12. And he had, these symptoms were significant. His low mood was significant. So this very good friend, clearly, gave him this B12, and for 24 hours, he felt amazing. Literally everything disappeared. He felt like his old self, mood, energy, burning tongue, all gone. And he couldn't believe it. So he went to his GP. From memory, he'd seen a couple of specialists as well. But anyway, back to his GP, and they said, okay, well, we'll measure your B12. B12 is a vitamin. It's a water-soluble vitamin. It's in the B group, so is not really toxic. It doesn't accumulate like fat-soluble vitamins, like vitamin D and vitamin A, etc. So he did a test, and it came back on the low end of the normal range. And he said, well, no, I'm not going to give you the B12 because you're in the reference range. He said, but can't I just? He said, no, sorry. So he went to another GP, and he got the same. He said, no, I'm not going to give it to you. So then he came to us, and he wanted a B12 injection. He said, that's literally all I came for, whether you're willing to take the risk with me being at the bottom end of the reference range on a blood test. It's normal. Here are the results. Are you willing to do it? And we did. And we did give him the B12. And he was exceptionally happy. So moving forward in time, all the symptoms disappeared. Of course, he also had tingling, burning sensations and numbness in his hands and feet, which is very, very typical B12 deficiency. So why did he have these deficiency symptoms when his blood levels were normal? That's the question, right? So just to finish off that story, what we found is a reference range is I think it's about 190. I think it's gone down a bit now. So reference ranges move around about 170 up to about 700. I think that's the reference, a very wide reference range. So when you get a B12 injection, it goes up over 1,000 for a while. If you ever do a vitamin B12 injection and the next couple of days do a blood test, you'll see it goes right up there, and then it slowly goes down again. So what we found with him is that he needed an injection every 3 to 4 weeks, and that if his levels of B12 fell below 700, he would get symptoms. And as long as his levels were up around 900, 1,000, he didn't. So he needed to be up at the very top of the reference range or over it to avoid the symptoms. So first of all, what are the symptoms of B12 deficiency? So B12, the B12 you eat and the B12 you get the injection actually is hydroxycobalamin. It's the form of the B12. So in your body, that B12 converts to another form of B12 called methylcobalamin. It's just a different form of B12. Now, that form of B12 is what you need to avoid B12 deficiency symptoms. So there is a byproduct of metabolism, byproduct in the body called methylmalonate. It's a normal chemical produced. It's called methylmalonate. And B12, through some interesting chemistry, gets rid of the methylmalonate out of your body. So if you do not have methylcobalamin, that form of B12, then what happens is the methylmalonate accumulates, and it damages, or it interacts with the nervous system in a negative way. So then you get this, the brain fog, the low mood, you get very tired, some problems with muscles. Your muscles are very weak, and the characteristic numbness and tingling in your fingers and toes, and yes, you can get a burning mouth as well. So that's what actually occurs in a B12 deficiency. It's an elevated amount of methylmalonate. So if you wanted a really accurate B12 deficiency test, you would measure methylmalonate, and if it's elevated, then you need B12. So when you measure B12 on a blood test, you are measuring the earlier B12. You're not measuring methylcobalamin. So we don't actually know how efficient a person is on the B12, on their methylcobalamin levels. So here you go. You can have someone who's got a very low level of hydroxycobalamin, so the test, and they're not really doing well with making their methylcobalamin. So then you get these symptoms of methylmalonate going up. So that's what is actually the mechanism there. And there's different ways to go about it. You can push the B12 way at the top end to allow lots of raw material, if you like, or the hydroxycobalamin to flow through, and which is what worked with him perfectly fine. Or you also can just take methylcobalamin. It's very well absorbed under the tongue. You can take B12 drops. It absorbs under the tongue and bypasses the stomach. And how do you get low B12? So if it's not in your diet, it's high in meat, it's high in sea vegetables, Japanese, type foods, and eggs. Vegetarians and vegans are often either deficient or on the low end of normal because they're not eating as many eggs and meat. So that's a good one to keep an eye on. The elderly can get B12 deficiency as well. What happens with B12 is you have a little substance in your stomach called intrinsic factor, and you need that to absorb the B12. If you don't have intrinsic factor, or there's stomach problems, or like maybe if you have ulcers or anything like that, and you have some disruption in the normal processes or health of the stomach, you have a potential to have a reduced intrinsic factor, and then you can't absorb the B12. So those are the most common ones that can cause B12 deficiency. But even just being on the low end for some people clearly is not the answer. So yeah, very, very interesting biochemistry. And it's not to say that that's a very common thing where you have to have your B12 up the top end, but certainly if you have a B12 that looks okay, but you have really classic B12 symptoms, a one shot, it's intramuscular, the shot you get from your GP, one shot will tell you, because the results are pretty dramatic. They're overnight and can certainly turn somebody's life around. So yeah, that's I think it's a very, very lovely story with a very interesting, keep it simple kind of message and get the basics right. And yes, it is true. You need to know a bit about biochemistry and all of those things I just said. But yeah, the answer is simple. So there you have it. I hope that's of interest, and certainly I hope you can use the information to help other people. And I wish you a very, very happy and healthy day.